Hello and welcome to your Hormone Health Masterclass. My name is Ellie Breacher, and today I'll be taking you through nutrition for women's health and hormones. Before we get started, I'm a registered associate nutritionist. I specialize in gut health and women's health, and I'm the founder of a private nutrition practice, Ellie Breacher Nutrition. I'm also the host of the Gut 360 podcast. I do one-to-one nutrition consultations, group programs, corporate wellness, and I share recipes and nutrition tips every day on social media, mainly Instagram. My handle is at Ellie Breacher Nutrition. In today's workshop, we'll be covering 4 common hormonal issues and how you can solve them. We'll go through cycle seasons, so how to live in tune with your body. We'll talk about different tips for the menopause and whiz through some key takeaways. So first and foremost, what are hormones? Hormones are chemical messengers produced by the endocrine system, and they send signals to various different parts of the body. Hormones help to regulate processes like hunger, blood sugar levels, and our sexual desire. And they're fundamental to all systems of your body, including reproduction. So the first issue that we'll talk about is irregular cycles, which is something I see all the time in clinic. And there are lots of possible things that might be causing it. One is PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Another is hyprolactin, not ovulating, that will cause irregular cycles, stress, a thyroid issue, whether that's overactive or underactive thyroid, low progesterone, and also undereating. Often people are experiencing this one without even realizing that they're not eating enough. Now, let's just be clear, there is no perfect 28-day exact cycle. So a normal cycle can vary, and it can be anything between 23 to 35 days. But what you want to make sure is that it's regular for you. So if you get your cycle every 25 days, it should be 25 days, maybe 24 days, 26 days, 25 days. It shouldn't go 23 days, 35 days, 24 days, 36 days. It should be kind of almost bang on whatever is your normal. Now, day 1, which we count from, is the first day of bleeding or the first day of your period. And ovulation typically occurs around days 14 to 16. And I want you to think of your regular period as your monthly report card. It's a sign of ovulation. It means that you ovulated about 2 weeks ago when you get your period. And as well as being a fertility indicator, it also reflects how your body is working. So ovulation is how you make estrogen and progesterone hormones, and these hormones support your mood. So estrogen lifts you up. It helps to boost your serotonin, or your happy hormone, while progesterone calms you down and it soothes you. The hormones also support your metabolism. So estrogen will improve your insulin sensitivity, and progesterone enhances the production of the thyroid hormone to increase your metabolic rate. So how can we support irregular cycles? Well, tip number 1 is to eat more, not less, more. Think about nourishment over restriction. Too few calories can actually switch off the signal between your brain and your reproductive system. And there might not be enough energy to perform the usual functions. And that can result in a missed period, which is also known as hypothalamic amenorrhea if your period stops or if it's very slow and very irregular. So ask yourself, are you truly eating enough calories to support your body and your hormones to work effectively? I want you to ditch the diet and instead embrace nourishment. It's also really important to include zinc-rich foods, which help to regulate your cycle because zinc promotes ovulation. Zinc also supports acne by blocking androgens, those male-dominating hormones like testosterone, and it strengthens our gut lining. So some good sources of zinc are oysters and shellfish, red meat, poultry, nuts, and whole grains. The second thing you can do to support irregular cycles is to have lots of healthy fats in your diet. Healthy fats are essential for the production and the function of hormones. So you want to be including fats with every meal and snack. Don't be afraid of fats. They support our fertility, skin, our brain health, our hormones. So things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado, oily fish like salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring are all good ones to include. And also nuts and seeds, olives, peanut butter, almond butter, tahini, all nice healthy fats. The third thing you can do to support irregular cycles is to understand why it's irregular. Try to get to the root cause. And this is actually the most important step to determine the reason. So if you have irregular cycles or no cycles at all, that should not be ignored. PCOS can be a key driver. If you're not ovulating, that's also, like we said, going to make you irregular or stop your periods. Thyroid disorders, other root causes are under eating, high stress, and a progesterone to estrogen imbalance. Stress is a really common one to consider, especially nowadays. We're all so stressed. The next common issue that we'll talk about is painful periods. And some possible causes of painful periods are the copper IUD, endometriosis, adenomyosis, estrogen and progesterone imbalances. And normal pain is a little bit of cramping in your lower pelvic area or lower back that doesn't cause disruption to your daily activities. But as the uterine lining starts to break down at the end of the cycle, it releases prostaglandins, and these stimulate the muscles to contract and shed the lining. But if your prostaglandin levels are too high, too many of these prostaglandins can cause pain. Having higher estrogen and lower progesterone can cause a higher level of prostaglandins and more period pain. And what we'd consider severe pain is if you have a throbbing or a stabbing pain lasting for several days, and that isn't relieved by taking, say, paracetamol or painkillers. If it's causing you to miss work or other commitments, then that's a real issue. That means that that's not quite the normal level of pain to be expected. So how can we support painful periods? The first thing to think about is detoxification from our liver and our guts. So proper liver and gut function is essential for our health. The liver helps to remove waste products, it metabolizes hormones, and it helps to eliminate environmental toxins. And the way that the body metabolizes hormones is key because normal, healthy liver detoxification helps to get rid of excess estrogen every month. Otherwise, that can lead to painful periods, like we said. So how can we support our liver and our gut detoxification? Well, firstly, we can eat lots of fiber. So things like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts and seeds, beans and lentils, all great sources of fiber. Cruciferous vegetables in particular are great. So things like cauliflower, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts. Drink plenty of water. Consider probiotics, although I'd always advise speaking to a nutritionist before you do take probiotics because you want to make sure you're not wasting your money and you're taking a good quality product that's right for you as well. Certain herbs and supplements can help as well. So NAC or N-acetylcysteine can be really helpful to support with liver detoxification. But like I said, always seek personalized advice from a nutritionist when it comes to supplements. The second thing you can do to support with painful periods is to consider magnesium. Now, magnesium is a mineral that's needed for more than 300 functions in the body. It can help reduce insulin resistance, which can make your periods heavier, and it helps to manufacture our hormones, including progesterone. Magnesium also regulates your stress response and it supports against PMS. It improves your blood flow and it relaxes muscles, which of course is great for period pain because that's your muscles in your uterine lining contracting. Now, an Epsom salt bath is a nice way to absorb magnesium through your skin. Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate. So you absorb the magnesium through your skin and it can make you feel really relaxed, calm, soothe your muscles, and soothe period pain too. Number 3, when it comes to painful periods, is to consider the why. So again, getting to the root cause. You'll notice this is a recurring theme in the work that I do. So some possible root causes of period pains might be insulin resistance, endometriosis, an imbalance of the hormones estrogen and progesterone, or potentially the copper IUD. Now let's talk about heavy periods. This is the third issue that I see a lot when it comes to women's health, and it can be caused by lots of different factors. For example, excess estrogen, low progesterone, again, polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, the copper IUD, thyroid hormone issues, endometriosis, and also perimenopause. Some signs of heavy periods would be if you're soaking through a pad very quickly, changing in the night, needing to double up, experiencing things like flooding or clotting, then that means that your periods are excessively heavy, and this is, something to consider. And heavy periods can occur at any age, but they're actually most common in young teens and perimenopausal women. And for both age groups, heavy bleeding is usually the result of too much estrogen, which thickens the uterine lining, and not enough progesterone, which reduces the uterine lining. So, how can we support heavy periods? I'll walk you through my 3 steps that I would use. So, number 1 is to consider inflammation and try to eat lots of anti-inflammatory foods that can help promote blood flow and relax the uterus. So, things like brightly colored foods, berries, tomatoes, leafy greens like spinach, oily fish like salmon and sardines, walnuts, and spices like turmeric, ginger, and garlic are all great ones to include. Omega-3 is particularly important when it comes to regulating inflammation levels in the body. Omega-3 is the building blocks for our hormone production, and it also supports with blood sugar balance and a healthy insulin response. So the second thing we can do to support with heavy periods is consider estrogen detoxification. So too much estrogen can cause heavy periods. And some possible causes of high estrogen are hormonal contraception, impaired detoxification issues, perimenopause, and insulin resistance. Now, to support with estrogen detoxification from the body, you want to firstly reduce your alcohol. Consider phytoestrogens like flax seeds, nuts, and legumes. Eat plenty of cruciferous vegetables. Again, that's your cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, and also consider calcium D-glucarate, which can also help to detoxify estrogen from the body through the gut. Support your gut bacteria as well to help to escort that excess estrogen out of the gut. So fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi are great. Probiotic supplements can potentially be helpful, but again, that one is personal, unique depending on you. And fiber, like we talked about. And then the third thing I would do for heavy periods is think about your progesterone balance. So low progesterone is a really common driver of heavy periods. And the only way to make progesterone is to consistently ovulate every month. So how can we support progesterone balance? Well, we can nourish our bodies with adequate calories and think about the 3 macronutrients. So you want to be eating enough protein, enough carbohydrates, and enough healthy fats. You also really want to focus on stress reduction, stress management. So whatever works for you, whether it's yoga, meditation, reading in bed, walking outside, spending time in nature, chatting to a friend, taking a long bath, whatever works for you, really focus on managing your stress levels. And also consider ovulation promoting supplements. Things like Vitex can be helpful, but again, essential to work closely with a nutritionist for this. The 4th issue we'll talk about here is PMS, or premenstrual syndrome. Now, some possible causes of this are an excess level of estrogen, low progesterone, excess inflammation, and stress. And symptoms of PMS are things like acne, anxiety, bloating, bowel changes, breast tenderness, increased hunger levels, increased cravings, low mood, fatigue, headaches, and insomnia. You probably won't experience all of these. You might get 1, 2, 3, or several of the above symptoms, though. There's also something called PMDD, which is considered an extreme form of PMS. And symptoms are things like depression, anxiety, muscle pain, social withdrawal, and appetite changes. And that usually lasts for the second half of your cycle. So how to support PMS? Firstly, think about serotonin production. So serotonin is the happy hormone, and 95% of our serotonin is produced in the gut. Increasing serotonin production can alleviate symptoms of premenstrual depression and anxiety. And the way that we can do this is by consuming tryptophan-rich foods like poultry, chicken and turkey, for example, getting plenty of sunlight, natural daylight, doing what you love, and reducing your stress levels, consuming probiotic or fermented foods, and other gut support as well. Number 2 that you can do to support PMS is to balance blood sugar. So stable blood sugar supports with hormone balance, mood, and sleep. And you can eat plenty of protein. Protein is going to create the structural framework for your hormones to develop. So include it with every meal and every snack. Animal sources and plant-based sources, both great. So fish, meat, eggs, beans, lentils, chickpeas, nuts, and tofu, all good to include. Complex carbs, so these are super important for ovulation and for balancing your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Complex carbs are rich in fiber, and that helps to support stable blood sugar levels and improve gut health. So it would be things like brown rice instead of white rice, whole wheat instead of, white refined bread, for example, whole wheat bread or whole wheat pasta, buckwheat, quinoa, wild black rice. Any of those are good complex carbs. Healthy fats, we've talked about those. So that's your olive oil, avocado, oily fish, nuts, and seeds. And then fiber with every meal and snack too. So fiber can help to get rid of excess estrogen by stopping it from being reabsorbed back into the body from the gut. And we need regular bowel movements in order to detox our hormones effectively from the body. Good sources of fiber, as I mentioned, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, beans and legumes like lentils, and also whole grains. Third thing to support PMS is to consider the root cause again. This will always be a priority. So is it PMS? Do you need to consider whether it's PMDD if it's hugely impacting your life? Try and get to what's actually causing it, and that way you can tackle it head on. So moving on to cycle seasons and living in tune with your cycle. Let's break down what actually happens in our cycle. So days 1 to 5 of our, average 28-day cycle, this would be considered winter. So day 1, remember, is the first day of your bleed, your period. So estrogen and progesterone decline. You'll feel lower in energy. So you can use this time to set boundaries, pamper yourself, rest and recharge. It's a great time to be more introspective. You can journal, you can meditate. And then we move into spring. So around days 5 to 12 of an average 28-day cycle, after your period ends, your estrogen will rise. And I like to say your inner spark comes back. Your libido will be enhanced and you'll feel more motivated and more creative as well. So this is a nice time to set goals, develop new ideas, and build and expand on new projects. Then we move into summer. This is your ovulation phase. So it's typically days 13 to 20. And your estrogen peaks. Most people feel great around this time of the month. Your testosterone and your LH are triggered for increased sexual energy. So you might feel more flirty, more affectionate, and more social. So this is a really good time for connection, communication, love, joy, pleasure, and productivity. Schedule your social plans, schedule your dates, host a dinner party. You'll be feeling sociable. And then we move into autumn, and this is our luteal phase, post-ovulation. It usually starts around day 20, day 21, and goes on until around day 28, or when we get our period. So you'll notice a decrease in energy. You will likely become more withdrawn again, more sensitive, lower libido, and you'll probably have an increased appetite and potentially some cravings. This is a good time for reflection, reviewing, introspection. Nice things to do in this period of the month is to kind of declutter, whether it's your home or your wardrobe, some organization, but just spend time with yourself, read, reflect. It's really important to honor your cycle. So put the dates in your diary when you're, meant to be in the certain phases or when your period is due, so you can plan events around it. I think it's really important to track your cycle using apps. I use Natural Cycles personally. There's an app called Flow, which is helpful as well. And you can schedule a practice ahead of each phase. So for example, in your winter phase or your period, schedule a pamper evening with yourself, maybe with a friend as well, do a face mask, whatever makes you feel good. In the spring of your cycle, you can schedule a creative project. In the summer, host a dinner party, and in the autumn, declutter your house. Now, let's go through some menopause tips quickly. So tip number 1, if you are perimenopausal or you think you're approaching that stage of life, would be to balance your blood sugar. So include protein, fats, and fiber at every meal. And also go for a short walk after your meal, a brisk walk. That helps to stabilize your blood sugar. The second tip would be to add in ground flax seeds every day. And these are a really good source of lignans, which are structurally similar to estrogen. Flax can help to alleviate menopause symptoms like hot flashes and also bone loss. And the third tip is to eat more soy products like tofu, edamame beans, and tempeh. And that's because soybeans are rich in isoflavones, which are structurally similar to estrogen again. And these can help with menopausal symptoms and support with bone health. They can also support with hot flashes. So minimally processed soy foods have the best nutrient profile rather than choosing the processed soy based meats. So things like fake, vegan meats based off soy, those are very processed, so less nutritious. And the less processed soy foods will also have the highest isoflavones. You can also find isoflavones in lentils and chickpeas. The fourth tip for menopause is to include calcium-rich foods every day to support with your bone density. So things like dairy products, like, natural Greek yogurt, tinned sardines and salmon with the bones, green vegetables like broccoli and spinach, tofu, almonds, and oranges. These are all good sources of calcium. Calcium requirements will increase with age. And osteoporosis actually affects 1 in 3 women over 50. So it's really common. And the risk increases with alcohol consumption and with low levels of magnesium, calcium, and vitamin D. So make sure you have a really balanced diet, getting all of these in, and potentially supplementing with vitamin D as well would probably be a good idea. Losing estrogen during the menopause increases the rate of loss of calcium from your bones, which can then increase your risk of osteoporosis. And the fifth tip here is to do weight-bearing exercise to support with bone density. So, lifting weights doesn't need to be heavy weights in the gym. It can be small weights at home. Body weight exercises are good as well. Things like planks, press ups, but weight-bearing exercises, resistance bands too. So a quick summary of what we've talked about today: the importance of protein, healthy fats, complex carbs, and fiber. These are the 4 components that you want to include in every meal and every snack. We talked about some specific minerals like magnesium and zinc and how they can support with our hormones. The importance of omega-3, a type of healthy fat found in oily fish, and lifestyle factors like exercise, stress management, weight-bearing exercise in particular, really supporting your bone health. Thank you everyone for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message on Instagram at ELI'S. I've left my website on the screen, elliebreacher.co.uk, or you can send me an email, which is on the screen too.